Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the second half of tonight's broadcast. Welcome back to the GSL, the Global StarCraft League Season 2 for 2024, the qualifiers. We just wrapped up with 3 matches, and now we have 3 qualifying matches remaining, and we're starting off with a Zerg versus Terran between soO and Ryung. Ryung, he just went to the ace match against Dark, went all the way to Game 3. We had a wild series there with Ryung able to pull off, able to be quite aggressive, quite successful in Game 1. And eventually led into a very chaotic game on Alkione. Game 2, we saw some mech. And Game 3, we saw Dark really just flex his skill and snowball out of control with his own style as well. With his Ling Bane into Ultra. But I'm sure now we're going to be seeing a very different series here. soO, he's not quite like Dark, but at the same time, I'm really excited to see how soO performs. Those who maybe are unaware, soO, he's been back for quite some time. He's been competing for quite some time as well, with middling success. Unlike players like Hero or Classic or Gumiho, soO has not been able to really achieve these higher echelons of play as other returning ex-military players have. A big reason for this is that soO is a part-time player. He is part-time. He does not commit full-time like he once did back in the day before he went to the military. So he is only playing part-time, and that is a big reason as to why he isn't as quite as high as some of these other returning military players. Like at the moment, I would rate Stats and Rogue a lot higher than soO, even though Stats and Rogue came from the military a lot later after soO had already been back. So yeah, I do rate them a little bit higher here, but the reason why I'm excited to see soO is because he just joined a new team. After being let go by Qualifier Freaks, after Qualifier Freaks essentially dissolved their StarCraft II roster, CranKy Gaming have picked soO up. Very interesting pickup, by the way. soO is basically the stand-in and the replacement of Dark, of all players. I was very shocked when I saw the pickup, when I saw that DKZ was still, of course, competing in WTL. I thought for certain, like, maybe Dongray Gu, maybe Nightmare as well, maybe one of these other big names, but no, they chose soO of all players. And to me, that says something. You know, for DKZ, that's a team of champions, right? They had Rogue for a long time. They had Zest, of course, before both Rogue and Zest joined the military. Oliveira, Dark, Hero, CranKy Gaming, they get the best of the best. There's a reason why they are 3 times, I think even 4 times WTL champions. That was back when they were DPG, not DKZ, Dragon Phoenix Gaming. But regardless, like, they're a solid team. So for them to have their faith in soO makes me want to have faith as well. But we'll see. We shall see as we're getting into Game 1 on Alkione. Let's go. Let us go. Again, I haven't really seen much of soO since he was picked up by CranKy Gaming, and I wonder if being picked up by a bigger team like that, with I imagine a higher salary as well, is enough to maybe have soO commit a little bit harder to practicing StarCraft, to competing, to improving, and that may be reflected here. We'll find out. As spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of Alkione, we have our red Terran player representing Team Vitality. And on site, it is Ryung. And spawning in the top right-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the South Korean Zerg player, now representing his new team, Team CranKy Gaming, DKZ. It is soO. Let's go. And as we settle into this, soO going for a hatch gas pool. Standard hatchery timing here from our blue Zerg player. We've been seeing a little pool first from Raynor, from Dark so far tonight, but none of the sort here from soO. Not yet, at least in Game 1. Ryung behind this. He just played out a Terran versus Zerg, and now he has to play out another Terran versus Zerg matchup. We saw him dabble in mech against Dark, and yo, if you're gonna play mech against Dark, I imagine we're gonna be seeing some mech against soO as well. Whether we whip it out in Game 1 on Alkione, though, that's the question. This map was the map that Ryung was able to take against Dark with a more aggressive bio style. I wonder if we fall back to the same bio build here against soO. We'll keep our eye on Ryung. But now Rax expand. Standard opener. Standard opener out of our South Korean Terran. Everything looking as it should for the time being. SCV Scout moving out, and with this Scout we're going to be able to get eyes on the natural base timing, on any additional gases, on the spawning pool timing as well. So Ryung just being safe and secure. There we go. He does confirm the timing of the hatchery. That does let him know it was a hatch first. So just like that, he's safe and secure. He does pull back, rotates around towards the third base, trying to delay that third for as long as he can. So it's coming in, but Ryung is in position. So a nice delay here of the third base, being as annoying as possible. Reaper's on the way. Can we deny the gas? Oh, we cannot. Gas Geyser is morphed in. Do morph in that gas. Reaper does hit that natural, but Lings have arrived. Queen is on the way, and soO should be able to hold on. Behind this, it's the same build. This is the same build that we saw against Dark. It's Rax expand into a third CC before Starport, before Factory, before Rax. A very greedy build here, going into a very fast third, and this is going to lead into a second and a third Rax behind this. So 3 Rax, Marine with Stim and Combat Shields. Now again, this is the same build that Ryung did against Dark earlier today. This is also the same build that we saw from Beyond and ESL Open Cup Asia as well. So again, it has been a build that has been quite trendy as of late. Ooh, as soO, he responds with a Roach Warren. I say responds, soO doesn't know what's going on, but he does throw down a very early Roach Warren. What was that, a 3-minute Roach Warren timing? Jesus! We're going for a Roach push. I'm getting deja vu. If you remember, it was the same map in the same situation where Dark also went for like a 7 Roach push, and he threw his Roaches away. Ryung, he got a lot of momentum early on with his initial defense. I wonder, will history repeat itself, or will soO have a cleaner execution of his Roach push? Speaking of, Roach Warren is done, and 7 Roaches are on the way. Now, this is not an all-in. I believe soO should be droning up behind this. We'll see how many Roaches we make. Ling's speed was avoided, was not made. Oh, we're going up to 9 Roaches, actually. Okay. 9 Roach push here from soO. Now we're droning. So again, it's committed, but not all in. Now, this does mean that soO needs to trade well. He needs to get some SCV kills, needs to trade with the army, needs to get some kind of damage done here, as 9 Roaches are moving out. Meanwhile, Ryung has yet to confirm. If you remember, last time, the Roaches pushed through the right-hand side and they got spotted by the Zolnaga. This time, Ryung, he rotates towards the left-hand side. He does come across the Roaches. Big scout by Ryung. Bunker has been thrown down, and Marines are amassing. That's a solid amount of Marines here for Ryung already. We may have to pull a couple of boys. I believe Ryung should be able to defend. And it does force back the army. soO, though, coming in with reinforcements. Does force Ryung back, boys. They have to be pulled. And rough engage there by Ryung initially. A lot of Marines not even adding any DPS, but the bunker is now done. And we got 5 SCV kills. And honestly, a better execution here by soO. soO, he preserves most of his Roaches, or every single Roach. Gets 5 workers, pulls back. Very nicely done here by soO. And soO's going to be transitioning back at home, droning on up, getting into his lair, getting into his 1-1. So Ryung's position isn't as solid as it was earlier against Dark, but now he's getting his 3rd. Factory is finishing, soon to be going into a starport, into medevac production. Stim is now done, but can we make use of it? Ryung is going to be pushing. I believe he's going to be fighting for the Zolnaga and maybe dipping onto creep, but he shouldn't be committing into any of these bases. Ryung does have to be careful. Quick reaction out of soO. Does pull back. Pulls back the weakened Ling. Bringing back his Roaches. Now he does dip onto creep. Again, his goal here is to just keep the creep at bay. Gets an active tumor. Only 1. And soO, he's actually committing quite hard here. He droned up to 3 base saturation. He's getting a 4th, but he's making a lot of Roach Ravager. He does want to collapse on this. Ryung pushing deep onto creep. Does force out a stim. do focus down a couple of roaches, but he got the reinforcements of soO. And he shuts this down. Forcing Ryung to stim away. Does have to race back, and soO, by the way, hasn't made any drones. It's been quite some time. He does have a 4th base, but he's only been main-hunting over. He has not made a drone in quite some time. He's amassing Roach Ravager. He's looking to max out. He's looking to push. He's going all in. A big 3-base all in here out of soO. And Ryung, he hasn't confirmed this, by the way. He's got a 4th CC in production. No bunkers. Very little SimCity here. And he moves out. Uh-oh. As he moves out, soO's getting ready to push in. And Ryung, his pants are down. Oh no. Pull him up, Bobby, pull him up. Ryung, as he pushes out onto the map, he's revealing himself, and soO, we're pushing in. We're going for the kill. Going straight for the throws. We have 1 tank here in position. Boys are being pulled. And we can just bar the tank down. Yeah, the tank will fall. We have a 2nd tank here at the natural base. So many SCVs are falling. The army has to race back home. And the piles are just a little bit too good. We delay the 4CC. And Ryung, he's down to his last. Has to pull the boys once again. That's all he can do. Stutter stepping his heart out. Going down to 27 SCVs. He does have some nice target firing. He does focus on as many Ravagers as he can, but it's still too much. GG gets called, and soO takes the lead in the series. GG. Get very nicely done here by soO, taking game number 1. Unlike his opponent, or unlike his fellow Zerg player Dark, soO just doubled down. he just droned up to 3 bases, droned up to 68, cut drone production, and just maxed out on Roach Ravager. And unfortunately, because he was pushing on the left-hand side, because he was avoiding the Zonaga, he was not scouted. Ryung, he wasn't ready to scout in that direction. He wasn't anticipating that kind of move out. And the onus is a little bit on Ryung there for not considering a push on the left-hand side. Didn't see it coming until it was too late. And with that, GG. GG, well played. soO does take game number 1. And now we're diving into game number 2 on site Delta. Let's go. Let us go. And spawning in the top left-hand corner of site Delta, we have our Red Terran player, the South Korean Terran, representing Team Vitality down in this series. He needs to fight back here and now to qualify for a chance to qualify for GSL. He needs your support. It is Ryung. And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the Blue Zerg player. Blue Zerg representing his new team, representing Dragon Kai Z Gaming, DKZ, leading the series 1-0. Unomas, 1 more is all he needs. It is soO. Let's go. I feel like soO always plays diamond build so I can copy them. I don't know if I would quite say that. For a very long time, especially if you're maybe a newer player, maybe you're unfamiliar with soO. soO, his kind of a reign in StarCraft and his reign of dominance, I should say, was quite a number of years ago, back when he was getting non-stop 2nd places in GSL. soO, he was the best Zerg player in the world at the time. Didn't win anything, unfortunately, or didn't win a GSL, but because of all those 2nd places, he was kind of the king of Kongs. And how many 2nd places was it? 4? 5? It was at least 4, maybe even 5 2nd place GSLs. But it all did culminate before he joined the military. It all culminated in an IEM Katowice win in a World Championship victory for soO. It was a momentous occasion for him. And his playstyle back in the day was a little bit more standard. He was very macro-oriented, was not necessarily known for being a very fast player, a very speedy player, very aggressive or cheesy player. Just a lot more solid in his play. Not saying he was too kind of vanilla and too by the book. What I did appreciate out of soO, I don't know if you remember this, but there was a period in, I want to say, Heart of the Swarm, where soO, I think it was when soO joined Root Gaming, and he Was it when he joined Root Gaming, or maybe he was just close with Cats? But he was even learning and taking builds from Cats as well. I remember that did happen in some GSLs where he was using his builds and going over them on stream as well. Really cool to see soO kind of branch out in such a way. And again, it eventually did lead into a win. It's great to see soO back. And like a lot of these returning military players, a lot of them are champions. A lot of them have a lot to live up to, and we're still waiting for that for soO. We're still waiting for, you know, that kind of prime soO to reveal himself once again, like Hero has, for example, or even Classic. I feel like Hero, Classic, and Gumiho are like the best examples of returning military players like popping off. It feels like Stats and Rogue are on that path. Like Stats and Rogue, they've been improving a lot in a short period of time. But we're still waiting for players like soO, players like DRG. That's another returning military player that is still like in the middle of the pack, it feels. In the middle of the pack, trying to break out. But I'm here for it. I am here for it. The other would have been TY, but TY already did kind of announce his retirement of StarCraft. I think that was last season, right, where he wanted to focus on Brood War. As I say that, I believe TY did sign up for these qualifiers, which surprised me. I'll be honest. I was very surprised to hear that TY had signed up for the qualifiers, considering that he had announced his retirement. I guess he's like the next Tasia, is he? It's like... It's one of those things where if a player announces their retirement, that means they're not retiring. If they don't say anything, then you know that they're gone. It's feels bad, man. As you see Ryung just rotating between the bases. Behind this, talking about the game itself, talking about our builds. We are getting into our 3cc into 1-1-1. Standard build out of Ryung. Getting into his Hellion Banshee play. This is going to be going Hellion Banshee. Does go Viking first once again. Not the first time we've seen this build. With the Viking first, he's going to be keeping his build under wraps. And oh my god, we're going to be doubling down. Going into mech again. God damn it. Maybe it's map specific. This is the same build that we saw against Dark, also on side Delta. And if you remember, this double armory build led into Thor's, by the way. So I'm curious if Thor's are also going to be on the horizon once again from Ryung. There's that second factory. Soon going to be going for an add-on swap for tank or Thor production. Yeah, third factory now on the way. Hellions move out. They threaten that third. soO's keeping up, and what's scary is that soO doesn't know what's going on. Because he lost the Overlord, because his vision has been stripped away, he's in the dark. We need that lair. Once the lair is done, we get an Overseer. Once we get the Overseer, we need to scout that main. Before we can scout, we can see Ryung patrolling around with that Viking, dipping into the main, getting a drone. One drone goes down. Was it soO announced his retirement? Oh no, it was TY. It was TY. Sorry if I didn't make that clear. I was referring to TY there. He had announced his retirement. Specifically his retirement from StarCraft 2. As he did say that he wanted to keep playing Brood War. Or specifically streaming Brood War. As we do see Lings getting across the map. Getting into that mineral line. Likewise, we have another Ling run by going straight for that third base. Hellions do miss them. At the same time, do we have much to defend back at home? soO does make a wave of reinforcements. Is amassing Lings. The Queens that come forward as well. He gets into the mineral line. Quick reaction out of Ryung. Does pull back. Does pull back. Does save his workers. Shuts down the Lings. And I'm afraid to look at the vision here. I mean, upon seeing all these Hellions, that is a tell. That is a tell for soO. He does start up more roaches, or he does start his roach warren. Infestation bit's on the way. He's working towards roach production, but this is a delayed scout here by soO. Oh, he's even investing into +1 melee. Not ideal. But the wall is wide open. The Thors have been revealed. We spoke about it. The Thor drop is coming. The Thors have arrived. Hellions, soon to be Hellbats, and we're pushing out. And this time, the build is looking that much stronger. If you remember, Ryung did the same build against Dark, but Dark scouted this so early on and he completely shut this down. This time, delayed reaction, delayed scout by soO. He's not quite ready for this. Lings are being shut down. We're going into Ling Hydra. Oof. Not ideal against mech. Roaches are amassing. But the army has arrived. And what do we have to work with? 7 Hydras, 6 Roaches, 1 Ling. We're pushing forward. Massive anti-armor soul on the Hydras. Ay, ay, ay. The Hydras get softened up. The Thors have been dropped. We are forcing soO back. Good target firing from soO. Gets the Raven. Does get the Raven. The Hellbats are falling as well. And soO holds. soO, he does hold on. Oh, I spoke too soon. What about the mineral line? Up. Good splits. We do avoid the Hellbats for the most part. 9 drones went down. That could have been so much worse. soO holds. So he does hold on. He's getting into his Roach Hydra, throwing down a Spire behind this. Interesting choice, going for the Spire. I'm curious. He might be looking to rush into a Greater Spire, into Broodlords. Upon seeing the Thors, I can't imagine we're going to Mutas. But we'll see. Especially because we're invested this heavily into Hydras. As we're rotating around, pushing towards that 4th. soO has arrived. Ryung late to respond. Yeah, he's late to siege up, late to respond. Tank is going to be going down. Boys are being pulled. A much better trade here for soO. Taking down another tank. And cleaning up so many SCVs. It looks like soO is going to be cleaned up, though. He does overextend. But looking at the resources lost tab, actually only gets 12 workers. I say 12. That was 11 in total, as only 1 had died so far. So 11 SCV kills, not too bad. A little less mine time. Ryung, though, amassing quite an army. Tanks and Thors. Tanks, Thors, Vikings, Hellions as well. The name of the game here for Ryung is going to be to turtle. His goal here is to just turtle up to fortify himself on these 4 bases. Speaking of turtling, there's the Sense Tower. And when it comes to soO, I do like this. It was to rush into Broodlords. We spoke about the Spire earlier. There's that Greater Spire. And Broodlords are going to be a big power spike here for soO, if he can get there. We do need time. Time not just to make the Greater Spire, but to make Corruptors first, then the Broodlords themselves. Hellion run by gets across the map. It gets a drone. Much more. Do you manage to get a worker? I was looking for the scan. I was like, wait, what's going on? Scans in between the bases, trying to get a read on the army. Back at home, how many tanks do we have? 11 tanks! That's a lot of tanks, man. We're building up to 11 tanks. We have a 5th CC getting up and running here for Ryung. Could do with some more sensor towers, but for the most part, Ryung is looking solid. And soO isn't really applying any pressure, which is a little bit concerning. I mean, I do love that we're rushing into Broodlord. Sure, that's great and all, but we do want to trade out our Roaches. Ideally with SCVs. Hellion Rumbai goes in, and ooh, we shut down a good chunk of drones. And here comes the main army by Ryung. Broodlords are still on the way. 8 Broodlords in production. We need a little bit more time. Good yoink on the Viking, yoink on the 2nd Viking as well. We don't quite get it. Ooh, expensive loss there for soO. Bleeds out a Viper for 2 Vikings. More Corruptors are amassing. They're making their way across. Oh, the tanks, they shell away. They annihilate the Roach Hydra. The tanks are going to town. We don't have that much anti-air. But they clean up the Hydras. They clean up the Roaches. The Broodlords will reign supreme, and they force this all the way back. Taking down so many tanks. 4, 5, soon to be 6 tanks going down. These Broodlords more than pay for themselves. At the same time, though, we bleed out a base with a tank run by. Again, that was a lot of tanks. Oh, they're on A move, though. Uh-oh. They were an A move. 3 tanks go down. 3, soon to be 4, soon to be 5. Some hefty losses for Ryung. Losing 16 tanks in total. Jesus. Quite an expensive army. soO counterattacking, but now he's forced to transition into Viking Thor. We have anti-air. Viking Thor Cyclone out of Ryung. soO does make his way towards the 6th. Does neither 6th base. Vikings, they take down a Broodlord. They get 1, they get 2. Good damage. 2 Broodlords go down. Ryung pulling back. Still building up his death ball of an army. Still not quite there, but there we go. Ryung, he has maxed out. Cutting workers at 75. How many tanks? That's going to be too many. 6 tanks in total. The tank count is far lower than it used to be. Much more diverse army here out of Ryung. Meanwhile, soO trying to build himself up. The Broodlords are okay, but the reality is that you can't defend with purely Broodlord. You need more to support this. Spellcasters, whether it's Vipers, Infestors, ideally both, do need them. Looking at our units tab, we have 1 Viper on the way. That's not that much. You killed the base though. Counterattack here by soO. Does snipe the CC. Takes down a command center. Rest of the army's rotating over. Oh, again, Broodlords are quite immobile. soO needs time. Does need a little bit more time. The army has been revealed. Tanks are sieging. And we're just zoning soO away from his own hatchery. And this hatchery is going to be going down. To deny the 5th. And we can keep pushing. Can keep pushing forward. Good kiting here out of Ryung. Pulling back, powerbomb with the Vikings. Thor's focusing down as many Corruptors and Broodlords as they can. And the Hydras, they melt against the tanks. Yeah, big tank volleys going up. The Hydras are going down. Thor's, they focus out every single Broodlord. There's 1 Broodlord left. 0 left. And Ryung, he's done it. He's broken through. Did cost him a lot of Thors. Did cost him a lot of tanks. They're snowballing out of control. Leapfrogging forward. Sieging up those tanks. He has control of the 3rd. Really good target firing there out of soO. Really good stutter stepping with his Hydras. But there's only so much he can do against so many tanks. Gets 1 more towards the end. soO's still remaxing with Mass Hydra. He's trying to Mass Hydra here against all these tanks. And I mean, he's trading okay. He's holding on. He takes down the tanks at least. Some of them, I should say. Takes down some of the tanks. It's not going to be enough. GG gets called. Ryung snowballs out of control and takes game number 1. GG. Ryung showing us that, hey, this mech style that he tried and failed against Dark is still viable, can work against an unsuspecting opponent. Remember, the big difference there between soO and Dark, at least on side Delta, is that Dark was able to get a very early scout on the mech transition. If you remember, his Ling got into the main base before the armories were even done, before the 2nd factory was even done. Dark saw everything. Here, soO, it took him a while. It took him until he saw the main army moving out across the map. Again, just a late Roach Warren, late transition. Well, it did have a much harder time keeping up with his opponent. And with that, GG. Ryung fights back. And now we have an ace match. Now we have a game number 3. Let's go. Game 3 going to be taking place on Oceanborn. A lot of money streaming Brood War in South Korea. I mean, yeah, it's popular, right? Like, it's a popular game. And to be fair, like, I don't want to make it sound like, oh, like he's chasing money. Like, Not at all. Like, I'm sure TY enjoys playing Brood War. Otherwise, he wouldn't do it, right? So, I'm sure it isn't just the streaming, but he also enjoys it. The reality is that, on top of that, I'm sure it's a lot more enjoyable to stream it just because of the more active chat. Just because, again, Brood War viewership and chat activity in South Korea is just that much higher compared to StarCraft 2. So, it does make sense. Does make sense for TY to embrace that. But here we go. We're getting into game number 3, into the ace match. And spawning in the top left-hand corner of Oceanborn, we have the South Korean Terran player, the Red Terran, representing Team Vitality. It is Ryung. And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the Blue Zerg player, representing his new team, CranKy Z Gaming, DKZ. It is soO. Okay, now even though Ryung did win with mech in game number 2 on site Delta, I do believe that it's map specific. I do believe that it is map specific, that Ryung would go mech depending on where he does spawn in, where he does load into, and I'm not so certain. I don't believe that Oceanborn is one for Ryung to mech it up. I don't believe so. We should be seeing some bio play instead. I mean, on the one hand, the mech did work, that is true. But a lot of that did come down to the surprise factor. Did come down to catching soO with his pants down. Remember, by the time soO realized what was happening, he was already invested into Hydra, into Ling Hydra. Wasn't ready with his roaches. So just a very chaotic game there for soO. Much more comfortable one for Ryung. And now we find ourselves in game 3, in that ace match. And soO has already been quite assertive in this series. We've already seen a 3-base all-in out of soO in game number 1. This would not be a bad map for that kind of playstyle. Likewise, Ryung did play Bio the last time he was on this map. Did play Bio. Did go for a more Bio-heavy composition. Let's see if he does the same. But now the Reaper does dip in. Dancing with the Lings. Not quite committing. As he tries to go for this creep too, but last is going to be zoned away. Back at home, that's going to be a 3rd CC before Starport. Very economic, greedy build here out of Ryung. Very greedy here from the Terran. Much more economic focus, maybe a better way of putting it. Going to be more economic focus, and behind this there is our starport. We float our racks over, going to be for a tech lab, I imagine, and an add-on swap. We could see Ryung go for another Viking opener, but before we can talk about that, that is an early Roach Warren. Oh my god! 3-minute 10 Roach Warren. The Reaper tries to dip in, but it is going to be denied. And Ryung, he needs to scout, needs to confirm, because soO, he's going for a Roach push. He's going for a Roach rush. And Ryung has no idea. Ryung does not have no idea. There's that add-on swap. Ooh, it is going to be Viking first. This is brutal. We should be starting up a Banshee. Like, a Banshee can be on the horizon here for Ryung, but because it's going Viking first, that does mean that soO's going to be in the dark, but soO doesn't care. He's going for a Roach push. So the Viking won't help too much against this. Now, as a reminder for soO, this is not an all-in. soO is droning. soO is droning up behind this. He's going for a 9 Roach push. And I believe Ryung has yet to confirm.
Command center upgrade complete.
He has yet to confirm what's going on. Viking is a real Roach. They're pushing on the left-hand side. They do come across the Hellions. And now Ryung knows. Now he knows what's going on. He does pull back. No bunker, no sack defense. He's got a Hellions to defend. No Marines either. He's teching. He's working on add-ons. It's going to be a tough hold. Viking forced to land. Boys are being pulled. Again, they have to be. And Ryung, he evacuates his natural. stuck on one base. And the goal for soO should just be to contain. Should just be to contain the army of Ryung and drone up behind this. Is all we need to do. Blair is now on the way for soO. Banshee does force back the army. Finally, Ryung, he can regain control of his natural. But the damage was done. soO is bleeding out a couple of these roaches though, and if he bleeds out too much, then Ryung can go for a big counterattack. Can go for a massive counterattack, cleans up almost every single roach. One of them does survive. I spoke too soon. So it does go down as well. Hellions, they threaten a dive, but the Queen's in position. Does think better of it. Does fall back. Does pull back in the end, getting into more Raxes. The game going to be settling from here. But because of that initial roach push, soO, he does have quite a lead here. He's already on 67 drones. Is not going for a three-way stall in. soO decides to take up instead. We're taking up into a Baliness, into Link Speed, and a Hydra Den. Very interesting. Okay. So soO is just calming things down, pulling back, taking his lead and extending it. And working on this next step. Meanwhile, Ryung is stuck at home, is harassing with some Viking at least, or a Viking. Doing what he can. Got an Overlord, got two. Not much else. And I'm concerned because soO, he's been so greedy, droning up to 91 by the way. My god. 91 drones here for soO, and now we can focus on maxing out on what? On Roach Ravager with Hydras as well. No Lurker Den yet here for soO. Ryung at least doesn't have to worry about that. And with that, you can see Ryung just forced to pull back, clearing up creep. Trying to maintain control here over the Zergs. And here we go, Ryung now pushing out with everything he has. He's got 3 tanks, he's got Marines, his Hellbats morph in. This push is hitting later than normal. It's going to be around an 8-minute timing here from Ryung. And can he break through? Dustin Ford gets a queen. One queen goes down. We barely try to chase down the second. Candace on the high ground. soO getting in position. Bailey's do crash in. Good Bailey connections there from soO. The piles were lackluster. The tank did survive. And Ryung, he wants to keep going. Ryung has not much left behind this, but alas, we have too many reinforcements. We collapse on the tanks go down. And there's only Marines left. And it's not going to be enough. Enough to deal with what soO has. Another tank hiding in the tall grass. It's going to be cleaned up. Behind this, Ryung just trying to muster up his army, rally his reinforcements. Build up for a second wave. The first is usually the strongest. And I mean, Ryung, he is able to deny this center base, but soO has already got a 4th and a 5th, and now he's working on the 6th. Ryung rotate around. soO keeping up. He is able to keep up, collapsing on the army, forcing it to lift off. And Ryung, with that failed push, I mean, he was so committed with it, he doesn't have a 4 CC. No fourth base in sight for Ryung. Were you Rexing? Yeah. Okay, fair enough. It's a 3-base all in. It's an A-Rex here from Ryung, just doubling down here with max production on 3 bases. Hasn't taken extra gases at the third, hasn't taken a second factory, which means, again, there's no longevity here to the economy of Ryung. Just 3-base all in. And if soO drones up too much, then he could be caught off guard. The problem is that soO droned up to 90 very early on. He's already gotten away with it. His economy has been insane. His bank is insane as well. And as Ryung commits to his all-in, soO goes for a big counterattack, catches reinforcements, gets around on the Marines. Oof, Marines are going down. Rolling in. The wall falls. We get on top of the Liberators as well. And soO, he does break into the natural. At the same time, Ryung trying to do the same to the 5th base of soO. But everything else is on fire. Big connections in the middle line. SCVs go down. 37 SCVs in total. That's a kill on the 3rd base. And Ryung, he may be killing a base of his own, but the hatchery doesn't matter. It's not as impactful as that CC was for Ryung. And this is his final army. This is his last hurrah. One of the tanks caught on siege. Not the best bathing connections, but we take down 2 tanks. 2 tanks go down nonetheless. Ooh, Ryung has to just stand and fight, take some bathings to the face. The tank falls, we're down to only Marine. Just mass Marine here from Ryung. That's all he has left. As a reminder, this was initially a 3-base all-in. Now it's turned into a 1-base all-in. Ryung desperately just trying to mine whatever he can. Trying to sustain himself. Ooh, take down the medevac. Yeah, from here the writing is on the wall. I mean, soO's got double the supplies. We have seen some comebacks already here tonight. Some wild comebacks, but GG gets called. It's not going to happen, not here, as soO will take the series at 2-1, advancing on and qualifying for GSL. GG. GG, well played. Congratulations here to soO as he does it again. soO, it feels like he's been overshadowed by a lot of the other Zerg players in current StarCraft. You know, soO has been back from the military for quite some time, and he has yet to really break out into the scene like he once did. But he takes his first step. Does take his first step. Does qualify for GSL. GG, congratulations. My condolences to Ryung here. Ryung, he did so well for himself, forcing the ace match against both Dark and soO, but it is not good enough. And with that, soO qualifies. Ryung gets knocked down to compete and to try once again in round 2 in that last chance qualifier. GG. GG, well played. With that, we wrap up with Group B. And now we're diving into Group C.